Space has always been said to be the final frontier, the last hurdle of exploration humanity has to jump over to obtain absolute knowledge about the universe. And now that our exploration into the deep, dark unknown is back on track with icons like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos leading the charge to Mars, we thought we'd take a look into the brutal nature of the journey that lies ahead of us. But what is it about space exploration that would make this journey so brutal, and what are the factors that have effectively hindered exploration of space over the last decade or so? Well, whether you're a fan of the universe or just want to know more about the effects that space exploration has on the body, you've come to the right place, as we're about to take a look at why the space exploration game is so damn brutal. So strap yourselves in and get ready for an informative ride, as things are about to get interesting. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss out on any of the new videos we post. Number 1. The presence of space radiation. The first factor we have to take into account when deciding whether we want to strap ourselves into a rocket and escape our own atmosphere is the presence of space radiation. And while this may sound like something straight out of a science fiction movie, it must be said that it's not a made-up concept. The main reason why space radiation is so difficult to understand and take seriously is due to its invisible nature. Unfortunately for human beings, we evolved on Earth where radiation isn't exactly abundant in the natural environment. As such, we do not have the ability to perceive radiation with our naked eyes. And as you're well aware from the onset of the coronavirus pandemic, quite a few of our brothers and sisters have a problem when it comes to taking invisible threats seriously. Yes, we're talking about you anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers out there. Space radiation is thus not only one of the most menacing hazards that an astronaut has to deal with, but one of the most stealthy as well. Above the natural ozone layer that protects citizens of Earth from this harmful hazard is a swimming pool of radiation that increases the risk of cancer, damages the central nervous system, alters cognitive functioning if exposed to for a long time, reduces motor functioning, and even prompts behavioral changes. To learn about the incredible and often dangerous effects of space exploration, NASA has actually conducted a couple of ground-based research projects using biological samples. These, coupled with the experiences that astronauts have had while up in the unknown, have led us to believe that radiation is a major danger that needs to be put up with when exploring space. It's for this reason that spacecraft and suits have been created with highly reflective materials that act to deflect radiation, protecting the astronauts that are either flying through space or floating around the ship for some or other reason. And it must be kept in mind that the majority of astronauts who have visited the International Space Station to conduct experiments haven't been exposed to the worst radiation out there. Since this collaborative station is situated within the Earth's protective magnetic field, exposure is mitigated to a massive degree, with those going beyond this field being subjected to around 10 times the amount of space radiation previously felt. And if you think that's bad, you've got to understand that compared to the amount of radiation we have experienced on Earth itself, space radiation is said to be more than 20 times as deadly. Suffice to say, protection is an absolute must. But since this protection can fail, the harmful effects of this radiation needs to be taken into account and explained to space explorers before setting out on their expedition. And while this is perfect for astronauts who have trained all of their lives to be able to deal with this journey, can the same be said for ordinary citizens of Earth when it comes to visiting planets such as Mars? It's true that the effects of radiation are mitigated using protective shielding, dosimetry, and alerts, but it's a danger that needs to be kept in mind considering the abundance of radiation in space. We are, however, on the brink of discovering something new about our bodies, with research into protection through pharmaceuticals being kicked up a notch. Who knows, maybe we'll be able to take a pill and be absolutely safe in the future, but as of right now, that's just not the case. Number 2. Long periods of isolation and confinement. Another dangerous factor that needs to be taken into account when dealing with space exploration is the intense amount of isolation and confinement that often comes with long missions. Here on Earth, we had a little taste of what this would feel like after lockdowns around the world had us all cooped up in our little apartments. And even though this process was necessary in an effort to curb the spread of COVID-19, this didn't stop people from getting incredibly angry with their specific governments. As it turns out, research has shown that regardless of how well trained a group of people are, being crammed into a small space together over a long period of time has the effect of driving them a little bit mental. This is why crews are carefully chosen, trained, and supported to ensure that they can work effectively as a team for months or even years at a time in space. Bet you didn't know that the majority of these missions often have a NASA psychologist on staff to deal with with a myriad of problems that have a greater tendency to lead to an explosion up in space than here on Earth. Think of it this way. Here on the ground, we have the ability to pick up our phones and be connected to friends from all over the world. So when we're experiencing a problem at work in our personal lives, it's easy to call someone close to you and explain the situation. As much as we don't like talking about our problems, this is necessary to avoid exacerbation of that specific problem later on. So as you can imagine, not being able to make this call while experiencing a small problem in space could result in that problem growing each and every day. But that's not the only effect that long periods of isolation and confinement have on space explorers. In fact, research has shown that astronauts can expect sleep loss, circadian desynchronization, and lapses in concentration as a result of what has been termed space madness. Since this often leads to performance degradation and adverse mental health, it's an internal harm that has to be taken care of before it spins out of control. To address this hazard, space agencies have invented methods to monitor the behavioral health of their crews. Research is also currently being conducted in workload and performance, light therapy for circadian alignment, phase shifting, and alertness. The hope is that this research will not only mean that anyone and everyone will be able to explore space in the future without falling victim to this so-called space madness, but that the current space explorers can be kept as safe as possible when floating out there in the deep, dark unknown. So as it turns out, it's the monster within that is still one of the most dangerous hazards of space exploration. Number 3. The overall lack of gravity. Next up on our list is the harm that may result from the variations of gravity that are often placed upon explorers of space. While it may sound incredibly fun to float around in a ship without gravity pushing you down, it goes without saying that this can have a pretty strong effect on the body. Since the amount of gravity we experience is very much based on the weight of the body that we live on, Earth has a constant degree of gravitational pull. And it's this amount of gravity that we have become used to. But this isn't a mental problem at all. It's more of a physical one, as our bodies begin to act strangely when outside of this ordinary scheme of gravitational limitation. Think about it this way. When living on Mars, Earthlings will be subjected to around 3/8 of the Earth's gravitational pull. This means that everyday tasks such as working, walking, and even jumping will be made a lot easier. Simply put, it is because less force will be placed on their bodies while doing so. Even less force is experienced when making the 6-month journey to Mars, where astronauts may experience weightlessness for their entire journey. But isn't having less force on your body supposed to be a good thing in the long run? Well, yes and no. You see, as you spend more time in these easier conditions, your body begins to develop and adapt to them. And this can be pretty problematic when you have to return back to Earth at some point. It's similar to the situation of being a fit runner, but then having to stop for an entire year. When you get back into running, you'll find it to be a lot harder than when you're used to run every day. In other words, without the constant gravitational force that we are used to experiencing here on Earth, the body develops automatically to not having to deal with it. And when these astronauts land on Earth once again, their bodies are not all used to the much stronger gravitational pull that the Earth has. The density of their bones, operation of their cardiovascular systems, and flexibility of their muscles all have to be brought back to normal Earthbound levels, which can take months of painstaking training. It's for this reason that research is currently taking place into the ways that astronauts can stay healthy before, during, and after space exploration missions. This includes everything from working out while on mission to osteoporosis treatments to mitigate degradation factors while on longer missions. Suffice to say, getting to Mars is one thing, but returning to Earth is another, and most people don't think about the danger that arises when going back home. 4. The distance from Earth. Last but not least, many astronauts suffer mentally due to the incredible distance that deep space exploration missions take them from Earth. Remember, here on Earth we have everything you could possibly need. If you feel like a nice hot meal, you can simply open up your Uber Eats app and order something delicious. If you want to see your loved ones, you just need to get into your car and drive over to their homes. But the same obviously cannot be said about space travel. While massive leaps have been made into the development of delicious space food, there's still no real comparison to homemade cuisine. And with communication delays of up to 20 minutes, talking to your family, let alone hugging them, becomes impossible. As we said earlier, it's the mental anguish of space exploration that often results in the most harm. But what do you think? Be sure to let us know in the comment section down below.